Hi, everyone. Welcome to another discussion of Warhost of Vastmark. Today, we are discussing chapters 7 to 9. Um, and this is the final discussion with this group. And then in a few weeks from now, I think on the September 10th, we will be hosting a live stream with Janny Wurts. I think we can all stream to our channels as well. So you can see this in multiple places. Today's discussion is like I said, chapter 7 to 9. Would you all like to introduce yourself, starting with Chibipoe?
Hi, I'm Chibipoe, longtime fan, and after being embarrassed in their discussion yesterday about Trader's Not, apparently I am the super fan, and they were all, a couple times praising me, and then I'm like, please stop. If anybody saw that yesterday morning, I was like, no, please don't embarrass me. But yeah, longtime reader, big fan. There we go.
But you can henceforth introduce yourself as the super fan of the series.
Yes. I am apparently a super fan. I am not just a big fan, not a crazy fan. There are no plans to reenact Misery. It's
Super
just
fans
people
agree.
read these books. All right. I think since we're doing C's, Chris is next, so we'll go alphabetically. So.
That is true. I never thought about that, actually. Yeah, okay, I'll go next. My name is Chris Mullen. Sometimes YouTuber, sometimes appear on other channels discussing great books, such as this one.
Excellent. I'm Jared. I run a Fantasy Thinker YouTube channel and hang out on page chewing and love to discuss these books.
And I once again forgot to introduce myself. My name is Varsha. I run the YouTube channel Reading by the Rainy Mountain. So these chapters were interesting. We started with Dakar executing some great heroics. What did you all think of that?
Yeah, quite a turnaround for his character to really come into his own in this chapter. Actually, it's a big, long section on how he comes around to being Arathon's man by trying to save him from the effects of the what was that, TNL?
TNL,
yeah. And the drug that Arathon used again to try and prophesy the future. And so that was interesting to see Dakar's whole turnaround and his plight and his look into the past through, I think it was through Arathon's eyes, right?
When he established the connection and managed to get in there, and then he took all of Arathon's memories that were causing the guilt, and then he's like, I'm taking these, you can't have them. And for that brief period, Arathon got his mage talents back.
Yeah, that was a powerful section there that where Dakar shared the fell massacre at Talcorin, not as retelling describe it, nor even in the history re-rendered by art to the majestic tragedy of Halloran's ballad, but instead firsthand. So he was really pointing out all the differences that history has portrayed things and how it relates to actual experience of being there. And I thought that was a very powerful section. I really liked how that came together.
I had Chibipoe's words in my ears for these last three chapters, where he'd said by the end of these three chapters, Dakar will probably be your favorite character in the book. And after every little section, I was like, yeah, not quite. And then, like, literally about a couple of pages before the end, I was like, all right, okay, you got me.
You won us over.
Yeah.
So these two together, which were originally meant to be published as one book, Ships of Meteor and Warhost of Vastmark, in some ways they are Dakar's book, right? They start with a mishap, like something that he messes up, and we come full circle with him trying to save Arathon's life. And I think there was some reference to that too, about how yeah, how this was hard for him to heal when he takes that arrow in the end. But yeah, I thought mostly it felt like Dakar's book, and that just went beautifully.
Yeah, his arc across this book is or these two books is fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Love the symmetry of at the start he falls through the air in one way, and at the end of the book he falls through the air in another way. One in kind of drunken stupor, and at the end in heroicism.
Yeah, yeah. What was I going to say? I was terrified for Dakar and Arathon to a certain extent when he was taking over Arathon's memories. I didn't register that until like well into the scene that it's a temporary taking of memories. And I was worried that one, the weight of the guilt, what it would do to Dakar, and if he holds on to it as long as Arathon had to. And then also, if you did really take away those memories from Arathon, what kind of person would he now be? Would he then more freely make decisions to make large scale what wage war back on Lysair? Or would those decisions come more easily to him? So I was worried that he was setting Arathon up for some bad decisions in the future. But that didn't happen. It was temporary, so that was fine. But that was an interesting path to go down as well, to think about what that might mean.
Yeah, well. To be fair, it was a temporary session of them, but I don't think it would necessarily be a temporary impact. Like, even if he no longer has the first-hand accounts of them, he made those memories part of himself, and he is, as slacking about it as he is, he's also, a extensively trained, initiate, by Asandir. So, it's like, yeah, I didn't keep them, but I still remember them and how it affected me to have them. So,
yeah. That is pretty close to the real thing, I suppose. Yeah.
Wasn't it sort of an? I thought I read this, but now that I'm thinking back, maybe I didn't. Arathon actually set this up himself by having to join in earlier on this book, wasn't it? Yeah, that he had kind of opened up the door for this to be a possibility. I think it was Dakar said something along the lines, "Oh, he's got me again." He kind of initiated that this could be a possibility by the joining of our thoughts and brains before. In order to save him, almost like he knew Dakar would come in and find him, going through the trances and going through the possibilities and all of that kind of forecasting that was done. Although I may have misread that part.
I don't know. I think Dakar wonders if it wasn't something he set up. Because he's still clinging at that point to his, he's a lot more uncertain, but he's still like, is this all still a ploy?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because Arathon still has plans upon plans.
Yeah.
And his plan, one of his plans was to use the frighten the enemy prisoners so bad that they would bring word back and kind of try to force Lysair's army back in that manner. And that ended up not working. So, due to that evil Deegan character. But I wonder. So you wonder how many other plans that Arathon is putting into place in order to try to facilitate what he wants to get accomplished here.
Were those plans the outcome of the augury, though, or do you think he had them before and was just testing out the outcome of it during his scrying exercise?
Good question.
I
don't know.
I think he was did use this moment to with Dakar's interference to try and like he done with Talcor and figure out the best way to make sure that all the Vastmark herders and whatnot, his allies would would survive. And as he goes, and I think you're right that wondering if that would have affected him as to how he would think of things, because he's got the burden of all that guilt taken off of him, and you see without that weighing on him, would he have done, or if it had been weighing on him and he still had access to talents, would he have planned out what he did there? Because Dakar even notes that he just goes on and tramples all over any decency or morality, and is still not satisfied, and then looks like, okay, so what if I do this, which is even worse. And
yeah, I thought the gamble was pretty big for him to think that prisoner transfer thing was going to work. That was.
And the car's like, no, don't do that. That's
Yeah.
But there is a subversion, isn't it? And maybe it was just a subversion in my head when they were doing the scrying and the augury, and you were thinking that Arathon was trying to limit life on his side, and that's really what he was trying to do. Whereas in fact, and even when he sends the men back, we think he's sending them back with this forestalled warning to save their side's life, which he is ultimately trying to do. But ultimately, the bigger pain here is the loss of these 28,000 lives, as gets talked on again from the enemy point of view. That loss of life is actually what he was trying to do. And when Dakar's talking about, this is the best thing for the thing, he's seeing the death of the 28,000 and going, we got to save these 28,000 lives of the enemy people together. And I sort of had this feeling through a lot of this that I thought I could foresee what was going to happen. And that subversion was, again, one of the things that I kind of, I didn't consider that's what, that is what they were looking at, rather than, because we thought it was very allegory to Talcoran, that it was going to be the severe loss of life of the wiping out of the clans, all of that kind of stuff, that the people that lived in the mountains, this was going to be the death of their culture. And realistically, it was just like a very anti-war message, I think, the whole way across, of like loss of life is just horrific on a grand scale and should be avoided.
Yeah.
Isn't
that sorry? Isn't that something that Arathon has been trying to do the whole time? Like, he's certainly trying to protect his own side, but for throughout, he's also worried. I think that's sort of woven into his nature, I suppose, that he doesn't want the other side to lose lives either. He thinks any loss of life is bad. And so anything he does to stop them and, lose lives on the other side also feels like a bit of sacrifice or something that he feels guilty about for him. So during this crying exercise, when he comes up on a plan that will certainly win him that battle, he doesn't stop there. That's when Dakar notes that he's not satisfied with that answer, so he's trying to stop the war from happening altogether. So that I thought was interesting. It felt in line with what we saw before.
Yeah, it's an extension of what he did at the end of of Ships, or the first half if you're reading the whole thing. Where he's just like, he even said it. He's like, I'm seeking to turn his Warhost, keep them from ever launching it there. So he goes and wrecks all their ships while they're not loaded. And this is kind of the same thing. He's like, except he's just like, I did this, so maybe think about how much worse it could have been if I had done this while they were all all your men were loaded up on them.
Yeah. And speaking of loss of life, I think it's an interesting contrast that Lysaea realizes that he's killed a lot more people going after Arathon than his father ever did in going after the pirate Arathon, and before they got here. And that was a neat, interesting little point that was brought up. And then later on, he even says that he would raise the inspiration to fire men to offer themselves in sacrifice to go after him. And that's just the contrast between these two characters.
Yeah, where he, I think he, after Branzian storms out on him.
Storms out on him, yeah.
And the one dude's like, or at some point after that where he's like, yeah, if I had the numbers, I would spend it all over again. And I'm like, wow, dude, you have no self-awareness.
Yeah. And at the end of the war, what he feels, we haven't seen Arathon's state of mind yet. We see him be happy that the Warhost is finally turning back, but we haven't had a chance to maybe see him deal with what we think. Well, at least I thought that he'll feel guilty about the 28,000 lives lost. That will hurt him somehow. But with Lysair, it's he feels shame, and he's worried about his legacy of how people will remember the defeat, and not even a little bit about the loss of life.
Yes. In fact, he goes so far to say, "As every life is worth it." There is no end to the amount of lives that he would sacrifice in order to snuff out the threat of the Shadow Master or otherwise.
Yeah.
But on the other side of it as well, in killing the 28,000, like Arathon also kind of gives justification to Lysair in some ways, because like the headlines in the papers the next day, so to speak, will say that the Shadow Master kills 28,000 or killed the 500 in very barbaric sense. So like I think Arathon's very aware of all that as well, to say, look, but this is just what needs to happen, because he, again, if for no other reason, then he's got this oath to stay alive.
Yeah.
And, just the big impact of things, and you just see these people who are just, as we've seen, they're just completely taken in by Lysair's charisma. So they see this horrific defeat, and then they're just like, "Yep, he must be right."
Yeah.
It really is a very complex no-win situation. It's like, what do you do? It's a very it brings up a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's not black and white. No matter what he does, the outcome is not ideal to a simple solution. And I love how that's done.
What was Arathon's justification again for not just leaving before not escaping, maybe making it known that he's escaping so that they chase him on the ocean, and instead making a stand here at Vastmark? I was trying to remember that, because the numbers here feel immense. And was there, I know we had a discussion in the book about, was there anything else he could have done to stop this? Maybe he was just buying himself a great deal of time. If the Warhost is broken up or completely destroyed, then he'd have several years like he was happy about having at the end.
Yeah, he was aiming, like to delay them as much as possible. That's what he did with the multiple ransoms. I stole the first one. You sent a bunch of gems. No, I asked for gold, coin, and whatnot. Anything that he can do to delay them, and force the turn of weather to make them break up and have to go home, which unfortunately failed. And there were so many of them already on the move and into territories that if he didn't engage them and he just snuck off, they would just plow through, and not just the Vastmark, but every other place that they were moving through, and Shand and whatnot would just get an army that size would just strip everything, and all the people would, civilians and whatnot, would suffer because they wouldn't have anything to eat.
Yeah,
that's what's on.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, he was on the promise to the people that live in the mountains as well, as part of their thing, that he would try and make sure nothing bad happened to them. And at a certain point, the only way that he could do that, especially if he had a defensible position, which he did have in this story, he's been running for years at this stage, and he's still being chased. At a certain point, you've got to take your stand and make your fight, and a combination of events probably just led to the fact that it has to be here.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, so just gotta break it here.
Yeah.
And not a sort of and just completely break it. Not a victory ostensibly as Lysair got with Talcorin. It's just nope, got to break it.
Absolutely.
And what was it? Oh, Muriel.
Oh,
yes.
This tiny chapter, but
they got the Waystone, and
it's like, all right, time.
Now she's like, okay, this guy's got to die. That's what she says, basically. Sends out the.
I did think it was interesting before she decided to, it kind of outlines too. Just it's like she's the prime, the successor, designated successor, at this time, and but when she's talking about, it's like, okay, gotta, iron out all the kinks in her character and whatnot, and it's really just like, wow, Lorinda's just being victimized here. Like her free will and personality just being trampled all over because it's like, yeah, these things that she's going to make mistakes, but Muriel specifically notes that it's like, okay, it's like she's going to make this mistake here. Now here's lesson I need to enforce, and I'm going to use spell seals to alter her personality and stamp out that defect. And I'm like, so you're just going to trample all over her personality and mold her into what, a copy of you? I don't know, but I read that scene a couple of times before she goes into the the scrying to address the issue with Erathon. And
who needs free will? We don't have to.
And I just looked at it like, wow, okay. Whenever I see her do something and I'm like, and then I see something else and I'm like, man, I really don't like you.
But sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. I was just going to say that is the fallacy of Succession. Even the TV show is kind of like, when you look to see who's going to take over for you and do the good job, you've got nobody seems suitable, because they're not a carbon copy of who you are. And then because she has, unfortunately, the power of foresight in this case as well, she kind of nearly feels like her opinion's been backed up now. She's got reason to do these very bad things coming ahead.
Yeah, I kind of assume that she's working off of a template for what characteristics for what a prime needs to have to lead. I didn't read it as her molding Lorenda to be like her. If she's like her, then it's incidental that it needs to be what a leader of the order needs to have, like whatever characteristics. Perhaps that's how I read it. I could be wrong. But also, what does it say about the order that you need to break someone on such a deep level to then make them eligible to lead?
That's a good question.
I did wonder too, it's because she immediately jumps to, it's like, she does that scrying and sees, that scene, and then she sees what's going to happen, something that may happen later, that involves her dying. And I did kind of wonder if, if Lorinda, it's like she draws a lot of conclusions from that, scene of, of her death. She's like, she would meet her death and, there'd be no successor and everything. I'm like, but, you just saw your death. How do you know? And so but I did wonder if she saw her death and, knew that, the secession, would, there'd be a new prime in her place, would she care as much, whether or not she dies? She's like, yeah, there's a new prime. I don't care. I'm old. I'm done. Because if you've dug up, actually now I think about it, I think I'll have to find that one. If you dug up one of the other videos, I think Janny's mentioned at one point when Muriel was born, and she's, like 1400 or something years old at this point. And, we've seen enough hints that however the Coriani keep alive, it's not exactly the most pleasant of, she's alive, but it's not very pleasant.
I also read that from Muriel's side that some of what she was doing and the decisions she was making were out of personal fear. At a certain stage, being seeing your own death or seeing your own mortality changes your decision making process. If you know what I mean, it changes what needs to happen. It's certainly tinged with that, and the kind of coming from a selfish point of view, she was making decisions that Arathon was a threat and had to die. Which, to be fair, she has had this sort of warning through Alara and stuff as well. It's not like the first time it's come across, but that very strong shift of, right, this is what's definitely going to happen at this point when she's faced actually with consequences for herself.
Yeah, she's worried about her legacy, right? That she'll be the first prime ever to not have a successor to take over immediately, and that's also why she's feeling the need to mold Lyrenda so much, because she doesn't have time to train another one.
Yeah, as I don't remember if it's. I'd have to look at. But there's been at least 2 before Lyrenda.
Yeah, there's been a couple, I think.
Because she says after the death of the first, which to me implies that there had been others.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Knowing what we know about why the Fellowship needs Arathon to stay alive, it feels like such a short-term goal that that the Prime is chasing. That her legacy needs to be fixed. I still don't fully know what the role of the Order is in this world, right? And how essential they are to the functioning of it. But we know as readers that Arathon's necessary for the continued existence of the planet, or at least with humanity, and maybe not humanity so much, but for the Paravians to return ever, and so keep the balance. We know how important he is, so it feels like a short-term goal that she's chasing, and that a little bit is also what Diego was doing with his need to get revenge for his sister. So yeah, it feels like some conflict between small term goals and like long term need to keep everything good goals between all these various parties.
And I wonder how much, because the Fellowship ended up giving the stone to the sisterhood. So, would they not have had the foresight to see that something more would have came out of them being able to use a bit more powerful magic than what they've been able to do so far? I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah, they don't seem to be too worried. Like, it feels like, the Koreani are just some flies they have to deal with occasionally. The way the Fellowship think about them, it doesn't feel like they need to plan around them, at least so far. So maybe they didn't think that any of their meddling might succeed.
Yeah, because he certainly showed up very quick when Dakar got hit with that arrow.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering how much is that a mistake that they missed that, or were they depending on something like that to get their goals done, to the whole situation, to get Dakar a little more involved in what was going on. And I wonder how much that all plays into it,
Yeah.
I think the Fellowship have done, and you can actually see it through exactly what you were talking about, like Asandir and Sethvir got the warning sign, for instance, but didn't intervene, and they do the very minimum involvement in the world, because they're very hands off. Yeah,
very choosy too. Yeah,
very choosy. So to this stage, I mean, even without some slight involvement from the Fellowship, the Koreani would have wiped themselves out, as it turned out. They, even in this book, they but for wasn't Sethvir had made the intervention with them beforehand, a couple of chapters beforehand. So at the moment, the Koreani kind of are. I feel like there's a lust for power within them, and that they want to be relevant, that they want the Waystone to give them back what they would say the former glory, and to be able to use and affect the world in a more dynamic way than they have been able to do so far.
I'm trying to think of things I can say here and how much of it, if some of it comes up, later. I don't think this does, but and this would probably potentially predate more Muriel, but I can say, as we know, humankind arrived Third Age year 1.
Mm-hmm.
That was the start of the Third Age.
Start of Third Age, right? Yeah.
And then they treated with the Pravians and the whole High Kings, and all of that was set up then. We still don't know a lot there, but we do know that much by now, I believe. If I spoiled something that's about to be told to you in a later book, I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure.
I'd have forgotten it by the time I read it again. I'd be like, I knew that all along. It's as likely to come from you as it was from the pages, somewhere along the past.
One group that did not get a seat at the discussions and negotiations about the terms under which humanity is allowed to abide on Aethera were the Coriani. So they got no voice in any of that. And so there's a whole bunch of restrictions, per the compact and town, High King law that hem them in, and they had no say in it. So there's probably some bitterness towards from the Coriani towards others, but some of what Jared asked about Fugitive Prince, your questions, and musings will be answered.
I gotta wait. Nuts.
But it is good because I feel like I was reading along going, we need a Coriani chapter here. This is a faction that feels significant, but they always get the third section. They always get the third section in the chapter. They always get they get the smallest chunk, the 10 pages, the 12 pages, a lot of the times that are in there. That might not always be true, but it certainly feels like that.
Yes, they will feature quite prominently throughout the next arc.
Yeah. She's not gonna give up after that one arrow failed, right? She has a lot to lose. I was gonna say something. Yeah, you said bitterness, right? Yeah, that's exactly what it read like. Like the Coriani are bitter about with the Fellowship because they're not looped into the decision making. But as the Fellowship are just like, the kids are at it again. That's how it feels, the way they deal with the Coriani. So, yeah.
Well, that kid almost took out the car.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say when Arathon tells Dakar that Asandir, they didn't want to intervene until Dakar completed his assignment, so to speak. I almost read it as the assignment was to take the arrow on Arathon's behalf. I don't think that's what it was, but was it to become friendly with Arathon or like realize about Arathon, do you think? Or
I think it was more. Let me.
Maybe
when Dakar awakens, you will send him from court on a traveling allowance. I'll leave for his reassignment. Tell him his task is to keep Prince Arathon of Rathane from getting murdered by Atara's new division of field troops.
Oh, okay. Nice.
It wasn't specifically, the arrow, but, his task was keep Arathon from getting murdered.
Okay.
But the implication is that
in front of it. Yeah.
The implication is that Asandir knew it was an arrow coming, and that he was going to have to jump in front of it, and that he would rise to the occasion through all of the ups and downs that their relationship has had.
Yeah, but Dakar also did a lot of stuff before that to help him out and try to stop them getting together, like try to stop Arathon from getting too close to Lysair as well, because he did a lot of his own like shadow illusion type magic to really trip up the army of Lysair in like some very strange and some amusing ways,
Hilarious, some might say.
Yeah.
You can tell those are Dakar illusions.
Yeah. I love the finest rendition of Dagaron's chariot roared into the arc of the sky. And they're all like,
I thought it was interesting that he used Arathon's resemblance for the charioteer, who I suppose is Dakaron. And I was wondering if in the last pages of this book we saw the birth of the religion of the light, or the cult of the light, that was referred to in the prologue, and also the one of the all of the horrors did make Arathon's reputation, but also is it tying it all with the more what do you want to call it, the religious aspects of the world, like Arathon's face as Dakaron now causing an even greater fear. The people who take back that story might create an even bigger fear of Arathon. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, was it his face imposed on the chariot?
Yeah, I think it's
like not by coincidence. It bore a resemblance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not exactly, but yeah, he made it in the form of Arathon, I think.
Because I know that like Ath is the creator, right? Mm-hmm. Is Dakaron kind of like the almost like the devil figure in this world?
Looks like, yeah.
Okay.
I don't necessarily a devil figure, but more like a, punisher of wrongdoings.
Okay. So are there more
judgment?
Mm-hmm.
Are there more beings that this world swears to besides Ath and Dakaron? Is there others?
There's also Dalian Fate Master.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I think
so
those
there's a little.
The only three I can think of.
Yeah.
There's a little tiny pantheon going on here.
Yeah. And Lysair apparently wants to wipe that out, right, towards the end of the book, or wants to make them less relevant. I was gonna say something. So you know how when someone is about to die, or like hopes that they don't die, they say something about passing under the wheel or something to that effect.
Yes.
I always thought it was an abstract concept, but the wheel is just something that turns and causes the dying of people. But then there was an image, I don't remember where, but you're basically being crushed by Dakaron's chariot. That's what going under the wheel means. I think there was something to that. I think so. At least
I think it has multiple.
Meanings,
because back during the scene with Gileath, the little girl, Dakar, I believe it is, remarks about seeing her, pass, beyond the veil, under the wheel or whatever, pass beyond the wheel. So
different interpretations. Okay.
Yeah, I guess it could just be a.
There was one reference that was actually a chariot crush thing. I forget where I read that though, but
it's a nice metaphor, isn't it, for how inconsequential an individual is? Is that actually at the end of time you'll be crushed on the chariot and you'll become like dirt, like everything else? Yeah.
Sort
of like that idea. I think one of the most interesting things that I look when we're talking about the book as a whole is actually Arathon's opinion of Dakar as the book goes along, because even at the very end when Dakar's actually given free will and free choice, and Arathon doesn't even get involved in the decision and only gives his pronouncement at the very end of it, that he'd be a fool if he did, for a man who's saved his life so many times and shown that he's been so loyal, to not want him in his camp, so to speak. But when you think of all the other times that he's kind of like just been drunk and he's just kind of throwing him in the back of the the cart or whatever it is,
where he's very much in the, you make your choice to stand with me, and Dakar is, doing it instead of just being a, worthless lump that he has to deal with. He's like, oh God, I have to drag him along on the horse again.
Yeah.
But contrast that with Lysair, who is very much about manipulating people to the point of telling them, that as the Suburban brothers kind of came to, he told us what we wanted to hear to gain vengeance, for this thing. They feel like they were told a pack of lies, which people don't. People say, or especially Dakar would say about Arthur, that he manipulates people with half truths. The Suburban brothers are very much this was a lie, or the pretense of what we were told was a lie.
Yeah. The I liked when I forget which brother, but he was telling Arathon he remembers everything, like every childhood slight that was ever dealt him and his family by Svalin. That again, like I keep looking for evidence of like what's Lysair and what's the mystery. This feels like significantly Lysair. That he'd remember and want vengeance for it, like even without the maybe he was learning to be a better person when we saw him at the beginning of Curse of the Mistwraith, but he devolved to reuse all of that information to
but
want to hurt Arathon instead.
How much, when Lysair sensed his presence, when he sensed Arathon's presence, how much of that reaction was him remembering past, or how much was the mystery? Because the reaction was so primal. He was like a scream, like a primal scream. It was very, very like over the top and vicious, violent reaction. And so how much of the mystery plays into that part of it, you think? Because whenever he's not near Arathon, he's trying to be calculating and and reasonable, in his own messed up way. But and then all of a sudden he loses it when he senses the presence.
Yeah, I think Arathon did too, right? At the end of Ships.
Yeah.
It's in the Ships, yeah.
He was fighting with it in this one too when he dropped the shadows of the veil. Pinned in.
Yeah.
But he was further away, so he didn't completely. And he had Dakar helping him too, so he didn't lose his mind.
Well, Arathon wanted to get involved, and Dakar was telling him, "No, you stay back, stay back."
It's where he got. It's so here's a blindfold. You can't see his light. I think he also had his hands tied too here as well. I don't remember, but but he was stay still and.
I like that little head-to-head between the two of them using their sorcery as well. The one cast and then the other cast, and then Lysair's realization that he's outmatched, or certainly in his opinion.
Yeah, I like that there was some strategy there where they're instead of just firing off blasts, he initially is trying to just give enough light for his troops to move, and then Arathon's like, "Lol, no." Nope, and bursts it out, just drowns it out completely, and then that was followed by him, Lysair losing his temper. He's like, "Okay, I'm just going to burn all of this off," which led to nope, here comes the mountain.
I like that.
I like how Varsha
what was
it? 20,000 dead.
what was it I said with the last one? Rocks fall, everyone dies.
Sorry, what's that?
So what was it I said last time? Rocks fall, everyone dies.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, we remember nothing. Chibipoe, you don't need to worry. You basically tell us everything that happens in the next book. We'll be like, did you? I don't
know. But since we're talking about Lysair, so I don't know if my pages are the same in this book. Well, no, they're probably not. But when Asandir's here we're about carrying about a another ransom, and Asandir's it's you're not doing anyone any good by fostering these misapprehensions. And Lysair is just whatever. There, as long as he's he's free to do whatever, then,
I'm going after him.
Then, I am perfectly right to, have everybody be afraid to stir up fears of sorcery, because, Erethan is free. And, just again, we come to, it's like he's taken the hit in his pride because he's been defeated, unequivocally, but it's not his fault.
Yeah.
Erethan's obviously so evil that he had to bring this army here, and he had to, march them into this vale, because Erethan was such a great threat, and, none of this is his fault.
Yeah.
Erethan just led him into a trap. But what he decides to do, and you just watch him after, Asandir leaves, and he's just, he was like, the Fellowship have stood, for Erethan twice now, and he's just like resenting this, all sulking and angry because, he's like, everyone's against me, and now I must, set myself up as, how does he put it? More than prince, greater than king, in a faith beyond mortal limits. He would labor all his days to become the example of a higher truth. When the hour arrived and the Master of Shadow was at last brought down, Isaiah resolved to leave something brighter, more enduring than a history of war to reward the faith of his followers. The faith of his followers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His work would bequeath the 5 kingdoms the benefit beyond the cost of Erethan's death, and bestow upon Aethera a structure of permanent protection that outlaws all creeds and boundaries. And then he starts, I think there's a mention in here somewhere where he starts, he'd been walking around just kind of, haloing, putting a halo up around himself, and, walking amongst the people, and, as they packed up and everything. And so I'm like, yeah, his response to loss, to getting beat, I'm gonna, start a holy war.
Yeah. Literally a swollen head with the halo and everything. He seemed extremely unprepared for the terrain. I guess it speaks a little bit to his to the what levels of his obsession that isn't that a very I want to say basic thing you do, go scout the terrain and figure out how you will fight your war, and then instead he just brought everyone there. And doesn't the Duke Spridian tell him off that he just defeated you with tactics, it wasn't illusion or sorcery.
That's
yeah. Leaders have been making that mistake in real history for thousands of years.
But like Lysair and Deegan, you've got to remember their Pesquil, their top military mind, is dead. There was a reason that he had that at this stage, and Google Earth wasn't working that day, so they couldn't do it. Like, Lysair is very novice in these kind of regards, and there is sort of hubris in him that he had 40,000 men, so therefore it didn't matter what was going to happen; they were going to crush him.
And that, and like, all the mountain coming down, and all the close by people were just taken in by, Lysair's charisma in the aftermath, because like the, with the Branzian scene where the captain, is like, one of his mercenary captains is now, he's like, you were not here for the murder of 28,000, nor did you see your own seasoned troops undone by illusion and sorcery. The Prince of the West sees a danger in the Shadow Master that runs beyond blood ties or kingdoms. His gift of light has promised to guard us. Any troop riding against this enemy without protection is begging a foolhardy end. And Branzian's like, Sithair, you speak of the rockslide that mauled deer Kenton Vale. The tawny spikes of Branzian's mustache lifted into a sneer. Everyone knows this countryside's unstable. Your Prince Warhost died of plain tactics. any cornered fugitive would have chosen faulty ground to save his skin when a massive arm might fit to flatten a whole kingdom came trampling in to seek his death.
Yeah, I like that whole turnaround of the Duke, and
how
he at first wanted to go after Arathon himself, and then finally he ends up meeting up with him and kind of making a pact with him at the end. And
I love that.
that was very well done, because it was just so, it seemed like a natural progression that would happen based upon the events that happened in the Vale. And I really like how that came about. I'm interested, because that was like near the end where he makes the pact with him. And so I'm very interested. I'm very interested to see where that goes in the future. And I love the line in here about Lysaea's defeat, and it says, "Beyond life, the mark of ignominy would endure, indelibly set in Third Age history." So that was like a direct reference to the current age they're in, and how this was a bad mark for Lysaea. And I wonder how that's going to play into the future as well. And there's a lot of stuff that's set up for the future novels that I really was like, okay, stuff that I want to be on the lookout for. And,
with the one passage I just read, we see a little hint of it there. Where the townsfolk are like, "Oh no, this was sorcery and trickery and illusion, and this guy is a major threat," and he's just been completely taken in by Lysaea's script of events. And as we mentioned, it's like Arathon won, but what is the cost, both like in publicly and personally?
Yeah.
But
sorry, go ahead.
So the truce that they formed was very typical Arathon, wasn't it? Insofar as he was going to get Lysaea to pay for the ransom, but give half of it back to the Sobriden brothers. Anyway, and very much, no, we'll be your ally forever. And he's like, I don't even want it. But yet people, that's the effect that Arathon has on people. That's the kind of thing that they
like. We don't care. We're your ally.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
Yeah. The plans that Lysaea makes towards the end about when he recognizes his mistake, that he's been bringing battles to Arathon's chosen ground, and he decides instead, no, I'm just going to stay put and form an alliance. It almost feels like hope that this will be over, right? Because Arathon's probably never going to bring battle to Lysaea. But then he says something later on about building another war host, but this time grouped together under the banner of like the Lord of Light. And I'm curious how that will go, because it felt like a mix of both things. You're building a war host, but to what? And are you expecting that? Yeah, he probably does expect Arathon to bring war to him, but Arathon won't. Will we find that he has reason to later on in the books? So that's interesting.
I think it's more of a short term and a long term too. He's tried the short term approach, basically twice now. Raise a big army, like super short term with the Battle of Talcoran, and then this one still comparatively was short term. Raise a couple of years, raise a big army, go charging after Arathon with his big army, he basically, sort of, while we had different results, sort of the same tactic both times. He's like, I came with my big army. It worked the first time, but Arathon got away. And now I'm going to try it again with a bigger army, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so he's like, okay, maybe I need to change tactics here.
And he has been crowned like emperor or something like that, or High King or something.
High King.
Yeah. The townsfolk, the Townsend and Tizen were, all pissed about the, theft of the ransom and all that entire debacle, that they were all unilaterally passing a thing to, name him as High King, Tizen. Yeah.
So he's still going to have the resources. He's still going to have the means, and he's still going to be well, a antagonist, to say the least.
Classic Arathon. Lycia's talking about no safe haven for Arathon. No matter where he travels, they'll be my people. They'll be thing. And Arathon's kind of like, I'm done with this place anyway. I'm getting on a ship. I'm out of here. But the very last line of the book goes. He's kind of like in another set of his own agenda. He's not interested in hunting Lycia or any of those things. But like Varsha had said, so I like the idea with the next book being Fugitive Prince that it could be both of them, in some ways. And that's kind of when I was reading the last chapters, I was like, I remember reading the start going, well, if the next book Fugitive Prince, how this book's going to end. But as in classic, Janny style, it has double meaning.
Yeah.
I like the final 3 snippets, especially the Sapphire one, where he's like, and these all apply for the Fugitive Prince and beyond. But Sapphire resists a triad of Audrey's made upon winter solstice to unriddle the bearing axis, which turns future threat from the Mistwraith. The split arc of mass faith undermined by solicit from the guardianship of Ath's adepts. The resurgence of Coriani interference upon recovery of their great waystone, and remember that one. That'll be important. Then at the crux point of all, the life of Rathane's prince, entwined through his name to help him stand or bring his downfall, the Coriani healer who stole possession of his heart since Merior by the sea.
No Lara in this book.
Yeah, but looks like she'll be around in the future.
She'll be around, yeah.
I almost want an Ilera book like this was a Dakar book.
Not a spoiler since it basically implies it in there, but Ilera will be around quite a bit for the next batch of books. So
nice
character.
One little tiny side note was Tharic and Janice got married.
Yes.
Chapter, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, how nice.
Yeah.
But,
and I love the last snippet too. That was Phelan and Arathon, right? And
yes, yeah.
some implied peace there, so that was nice.
But she's heading his navy, so and sort of, or his ship anyway. She's taking him where he wants to go. The other favorite bit, of course, was the very brief scene between Nassandir and Lycia, as his envoy.
Yeah.
And Lycia's anger towards Ascendir and Ascendir's sort of indifference towards him.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even when he's trying to retort, he's already away on his horse. Like he's gone. He says his words about look at speak to his allies before you do it. And Lycia is very much only if they arrive in chains to me first, as in I'm not interested.
Yeah, and Ascendir's like, yeah, okay.
And I also came across an interesting line about the mage site that Dakar has, and it was like a man who has access to mage site could pick out the blue-white dance of their life energies.
I've seen that.
Like tiny constellations of stars strewn among the tangled briar stems, and I just like that. This little insight into like how the mage site magic works, and like the man trained to a vision can also could see also the hazed burn of life force undone and ripped into untimely death. And so that just seems to tie into the whole magic system and how it's all related to almost a physical type physics type deal,
Yeah. We got a mention of that in Curse when Halamarin is observing Arathon and the tree gets pulled down and Halamarin's like, oh, he's a mage.
Yeah, and it says I like how she keeps sprinkling those viewpoints of the magic in there to keep reminding us how it's all tied together and with life and with the life force of pretty much everything.
Yeah, I like that. I had 2 things that I was hoping to get clarifications on through discussion. One was Dakar thinks to himself about how if he hadn't stopped the arrow, if it had gone straight to Arathon, then even the Fellowship wouldn't have been able to figure out that it was a Koryani arrow. Is that because it would only have dispersed and left all trace of its use if it hit its target in Arathon? Or was there something else that I missed there? It didn't meet its target, it hit Dakar, so you could still figure out that it was a Koryani crystal. Is that how that would have worked?
I think it was reliant upon whether the target was still alive.
I see.
So if it hit Arathon and Arathon had died before, the Fellowship, could intervene, and it was also planted like super, furtively. It was just, it's like its job was, make sure this arrow's, hit when it hits, that this arrow's, strikes a mortal wound. And then it promptly just unravels. So you'd only have like that, brief window to pick up its presence before it just, disappears.
But Asandir did know, because before Dakar told him, he knew that it was Koryani. So it was...
yeah. It had also dispersed within Dakar, right? Because he said the only evidence was that his own eyewitness knew it. So
I think so. I think he. Where does he get?
That'd be a good question to bring up with Janny.
yeah. There was one. Yeah, and also I guess the question is about it's only implied that the Prime sort of did something to nudge the Duke more quickly towards vengeance. We don't know how he got hold of a Koryani crystal or how that was planted in his set of arrows. Or was it not a Koryani crystal, just magic? I thought it was crystal.
Just a little bit of magic,
Okay.
But since they use crystals, he picked up the car picked up the resonance of, how the method of how they do it.
Okay. That makes sense. Cool. The other thing, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think when she was planning it, I think basically she did a similar number to what she did with, Tharic. When she had the Cirrus, give him the vision of where, Arathon's shipyard was.
Yeah.
But instead of having Cirrus did it, she just, poked a astonishingly vivid dream into, Branzian's head, while he was sleeping, and, bespelled one of his arrows.
I see. Okay. Makes sense. So the other thing was, I think one of the clansmen, if I remember correctly, tells the Sbridian brothers that Arathon doesn't have mate sight anymore, so he's not able to weave magic. But he also seems to imply that he never even wove shadows.
No, he didn't kill them with magic. Was that the line? Something like that, rather than, when they were saying, oh, it was around the attack on the stronghold, wasn't it? Insofar as, and he says that must have been Arathon, and he says it couldn't have been Arathon because he's lost his ability to do that.
And that one of them also told him about his duel with Erlian. From ships where he did not use his shadows at all. He just fought sword to sword.
So that was what I was wondering about, because he said he did not use shadows, seeming to imply that he can't even weave shadows now because he's lost his mate sight, but we know that he can. So are they being led to believe that he cannot even weave shadows?
But they know that he can, because that was exactly, what happened before the mountain fell. That obviously the sky darkened and all that kind of stuff. But and Arathon also confirms it, doesn't he? When he goes in and does his questioning, he basically says, he used his manipulation of shadow to carry out the Fellowship's work.
Yeah. I don't know. I may have misread that. I must have missed something there.
No, I had that question myself, Varsha.
Now you've told us a lie. We saw your spells wreck our keep. Mine, touched to queer sorrow by denial, Erethan shook his dark head. But that's not possible. Jirith's companions can testify. I lost the trained use of my match talents since my abuse of Grand Conjury on the field of blood at Talcoran. That's what your clansman did say, Brenzian lowered his leg to free Keldmar, then shook Parian off with a sharp backward thrust. Also, Earlian Scout confirmed. He told me he saw you fight nearly to a standstill, and you called down no shadows, even when you thought you'd end up maimed. It doesn't sound to me like a sorcerer given over to carelessness. I think they were saying he's just like, yeah, he fought and he didn't call him down, but they know he could call him down because the three of Brenzian wasn't there, but the other three were on the field, leading different factions when shadows got dumped all over them, cutting off the groups and whatnot.
I see. Maybe the implication there is that he doesn't bring down shadows even when pushed to a corner, so he probably didn't misuse magic there. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, if he was going to use the shadows, he would do it deliberately.
Yeah. So the other interesting thing, like no more questions, is something to discuss, was it seemed I was under the impression that the magic barrel that exploded in the Spridian basement was their gunpowder, and so it exploded when Arathon, I don't know, did something there. But I guess they're saying that they didn't have anything to do with that either, and someone else planted those spells. The brothers.
It was two of the brothers, wasn't it?
It was two of the brothers.
But they went
they
Hughes.
They had their memories erased.
Oh,
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
It was the black powder for the culverin. Erethan didn't know what it was, so he thought it was just some spell seals, something.
That's
and
right.
since they got their memories erased, they just assumed when Erethan's like, there was some kind of spell seals there, and they're like, well, we don't do that, and he's like, well, maybe that's what the fellowship. Erethan's like, maybe that's what the fellowship we're trying to find out. I don't know. I just know what happened.
Did Arathon unwittingly lead them again on the path where they'd find and create those weapons again? That was interesting. Yeah, I didn't make that connection.
There was also a line that somebody said that there's an old platitude that was no fable, that the world's luck walked in a fellowship sorcerer's shadow. And I forget who said that, but I thought that was a great line that was in there. And somebody also pointed out that to Dakar that he misread his own vision of that arrow. And I think it was either a Sander when he came to rescue him.
I think I vaguely remember that line.
Yeah, it's in chapter 9 somewhere, but and so I'm wondering if that had to do, with Dakar jumping in front of it, if that's what actually he was reading in his vision. But he was so set on it being against Arathon. I was kind of curious about that. It
was Dakar actually himself thinking about it. It was after the Branzian, barged in on Varsha scene, so we know what's there, but it was the forces from J-Lot or whatnot were still persisting, and Erethan asked him to, make sure to help, the, groups trying to retreat out the back way or whatever. And he, as he's, heading back to the campsite or whatever after that, he's just kind of exhausted, and he's like, not paying attention, and, misreads his own vision and walks right past the spot, where it was going to happen.
Okay. Oh, so it was him, his own stuff that he misread his own vision. Okay.
Yeah. On this paperback, it's page 425. I don't know. Like I said, I did notice that the paperbacks are larger now, so we may be on the same page. But by midnight, the winds drove a barbed slash of sleet. Dakar flexed numb toes in his waterlogged boots and shouldered head down against the blast. The cold yet more bitter rode them back of the storm, and a chill raked him through his wet clothing. The shepherd seemed inured to the discomforts of the climate that made no sound in complaint. Dakar was aware of them only as movement, the tap of a bow against a silver-chased horn, or a soft slip step in total darkness. They relied on his mage sight to feel out the path. His senses were overstrung and tired, enough that he misread his own vision.
Okay.
When a flare of thin light glanced at the edge of his perception and his nostrils picked up what could have been a faint sheared trail of ozone, he stopped.
Oh, so much in here.
It's yeah. It's like he unreeled his awareness into howling dark until he could taste the rank density of the night, and that's such a good turn of phrase. And taste the night. That's to just establish how mage sight is like.
Yeah.
The flare had not. He found nothing. The flare had not been lightning. Flat clouds spread over the mountains in a fabric of random motion. Nowhere did he encounter the latticed energies of charged spellcraft. Based on uneasiness, he could pinpoint no reason why the blank elements should feed his spurt of alarm. And then he gets blundered into, and he's just like, "Oh, I'm tired. All right, let me keep moving." And then there's like winter had crept in, all unnoticed, while one fragment of prophecy had unforgivably slipped his attention.
Oh, interesting.
And then he resolves to be like, as soon as I get this group safe, I'll go back and tell Erethan about the, vision and, that someone's going to try to shoot him with an arrow. But then he passes out from exhaustion.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Wakes up and then he's like, oh my God, shit, and takes off running.
Yeah.
He really put off telling Arathon for a long time. Did he think he had more time? Because I think at some point we're told that the autumn came early in the mountain, or things grew earlier or died earlier than Dakar thought because they were higher up in the slopes. Do you think he thought he had more time, like in terms of number of days to tell him, or also why did he put it off so long? It felt like by the end of the 7th chapter, he had enough to know that he's Arathon's friend now, but why would he still want that level of control on Arathon's life or death?
Don't know. Maybe he was worried that Arathon was going to try to do something about it.
Okay.
And that would have
maybe him tell him, confirms it or something, that kind of thing is prophecy.
Yeah.
Does the prophecy come true because he told him or that kind of thing? It caught me unawares because I thought that prophecy and the Coriani prophecy were setting up for books way down the line. So when he says the assassin, and then he talks about, oh God, I walked past this place yesterday, I should have recognized it. And then he sees, I love the way that was told, as his vision just came into the thing. If he turns his head a bit more, it will be exactly the vision, that's kind of like, wow, okay.
Yeah. Turns his head a little. Yeah, maybe.
Awesome.
Yeah. Was there anything else to discuss? What are you most excited for in the upcoming books?
Well, I'm just excited for the next book. I want to,
I am excited for the next book, and especially the one after that, and then the one after that, and the one after that, which is basically the entire next arc.
I'm sort of excited for get more of the world, because obviously like we're 3 books in, but as you said, it's about Dakar, Arathon book, has been very concentrated on them, and the fact that they're heading towards a place that's just been marked on a map that nobody really knows about. Again,
Yeah.
Google Earth not working. Take the story in a direction or a place that we as the reader don't really know anything about yet. I think that's the stuff that I'm most excited for.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah.
I'm excited for more Ilera. And also, I'm wondering if the place that they're traveling to, I know we got a snippet in Curse of the Mistwraith, where there was a unicorn and a sleeping sorcerer. I'm wondering if we'll see them next, if that's where Arathorn's headed to.
Yeah, very nice.
I wonder.
Yeah, but with that said, these books are very enjoyable to take it and just enjoy it as you're reading it. So there's no. I'm happy that you don't have to rush through these books in order to really let it soak in and enjoy the prose and just. I'm having a good time with them.
Very good, like the journey before destination kind of thing. Like you do want to know how it comes together and what happens, but not at the expense of all the threads that go and join it together.
Yeah. Did anyone else cry a lot when Dakar had his final change?
I have never cried at a book. I think I've said this before. Not that I'm hard. I cry at movies all the time, but not. I've never been that attached to a character in a book, or certainly in that kind of way. I expect that people will die. Major characters will die in books. Like maybe that's part of it, you know.
Yeah, I didn't cry when he was hurt. I cried when he woke up and realized. I think to some extent he mattered enough to be saved by a fellowship sorcerer. I think that was sort of the realization he had. Like it's not stated so explicitly, but that feels to be his conclusion. And I love that. Like Dakar is used to thinking of himself as this useless person, but
isn't that the line? The fact that his one noble act in life was the one thing that killed him. Like he got to do one noble act in life, and he never got to see the value of that.
Yeah.
And even when he said he was going to be Arathorn's man, he's like to Arathorn, you know, I'm still getting drunk. I'm still whoring. I'm not changing him as a person. It's very it's not very true to him. I thought both these things were very funny.
Yeah.
So the only thing keeping him from drinking in this book was because he wanted to keep a close eye on Arathorn. Right? He no longer needs to do that. So I guess it's going to be back to full-on debauchery.
It's no longer making him sick, because that's not the thing that his drinking was cursed to a certain extent.
Yeah, because I don't think we discussed that when, you know, he right before Arathorn lost his mage talent again. You know, the last thing he did was, you don't need this anymore. I don't like it, and so I'm going to cut this, you know, thing off, so you can go do whatever you want.
Yeah, I like that. Which is why I wondered at the end of that chapter when he said he still wants to hold on to that aspect of control he has over Arathorn, because he's no longer bound to him. One of the reasons why he didn't want to tell Arathorn, apart from his hatred of him, was also that he'd be free from Asandir's binding. But now that's no longer a factor.
Well, he was free of the Geas that made all his food and everything, you know, go sour if he left Arathorn's presence for any length of time. But he still had, you know, the charge from, you know, Asandir that, you know, I need you to, this is your job and what I want you to do. So
I see. Okay, makes sense.
Cool.
I think that's everything.
Now go forth to start Fugitive Prince.
Yes.
My bookmark shall be transferred.
Yeah, I do that for series. I transfer the same bookmark.
I have to decide if I want.
Nice.
The font is tiny.
I've been reading them on Kindle a lot, but I've got my you know, the ones I showed off. I've got my old paperbacks back, so I'm like, do I want to read this one in the paperback? You know, and which bookmark do I want to use? Because I've got bookmarks everywhere. Some of them are just like, here, the store gave me a cheap old bookmark, you know, when I bought it in the store, and some of them are like, I found a little pack of bookmarks. It's like some Japanese art, and tassels on them. These are really cool. And then I have a little cloth bookmark that someone gave me as a present.
Oh, nice.
Little weights on the end. But that's in a hardback book right now. So
very nice.
One of Andrea Stewart's.
I like fancy bookmarks, but I'm worried I'll lose them, so I don't use them. I just collect them.
I've got one. I think it came in one of these books, and I have to see where I put it. It's like, when they'd have all the little bookmarks for, that would have fantasy art on them, and it's a piece of Michael Whelan's art from, I think, the cover of Snow Queen.
Ooh.
If you've seen that,
yeah.
Sure, it's one of the two, but it's somewhere.
Nice. All right, shall we do outros? Chibipoe, would you like to start us off?
Sure. Again, I am Chibipoe. I can be found on my Twitter, Chibipoe1, or Chibipoe's Library, as I call it, where I retweet and promote books. I'm also on Page Chewing, and I pop in here on YouTube. In people's chats. Now and then.
All right. We still doing alphabetical or?
Oh, I don't know. Okay, I'll go for it. That's
we'll mix it up now. So I went. Now we'll have Varsha.
Okay. I will just tag the next person, I suppose. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Reading by the Rainy Mountain. The About page has direct ways to reach out if you'd like to do that. Also, I hang out a lot on the Page Chewing forum, where we also plan these reading group discussions. If you'd like to join us there, that would be awesome. I also have a podcast you can look up that I started a couple of weeks ago called Bright Threads in the Tapestry. It's available on Apple and Google and Amazon podcast websites. I'll tag Jared.
All right. I'm at the Fantasy Thinker YouTube channel, and I also hang out on the Page Chewing forums and have a Page Chewing blog on there as well. So you can find me those places. Yeah, Chris.
Thank you very much, Jared. My name is Chris Moon. You can find me on my YouTube channel, which is just my name. You can find me on the Page Tune forums, where we have like numerous read-alongs starting, and planning in various stages there, so you can get involved and join in there, or you can find me on X at 7 o'clock shadow.
Oh yeah, and also on YouTube, I have my gigantic public playlist with like every single video related to her stuff. So if you want them all, they're there in one place.
Nice.
There's multiples of some videos though, so because I'm like, all right, I'm putting this one on here, so you guys I'll release yours. I'm like, nope, they all go in here. I try to organize them though, but I don't always get around to it because organizing a playlist on YouTube is a pain, especially if it's a big one.
But this is how you get world famous.
In a longest playlist.
I just wanted to, to put it all in one convenient place.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So many people, posting videos now. So.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's a good time to be a Wars of Light and Shadow fan.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see everyone on September 10th in a live stream discussion for Warhost of Vastmark. We are.
I have a question about that.
Mm-hmm.
Where was it? Was it here? All right. Okay, I see where you said that before, because one of the first ones you in your first video on the 8th, you mentioned following her, maybe your dates were off. That's all. Never mind. Because I thought the way I read it, I thought it's like, okay, wait, I thought we were having the discussion with Janny next week, but I misread that, so never mind.
Yeah, it's in a few weeks.
Yes, 10th.
Yeah, the 27th here, and I was like, wait, but we're having the, last 3 chapters the 20th. Does that mean Janny's on the discussion with Janny is on the 27th? I'm confused, but I understand now. So remind me. Sorry.
Yeah, it's on the 10th. Okay, so 10th is the live stream with Janny Wurts for Warhost of Vastmark and all the books before. We are starting the Fugitive Prince discussions in early October. We'll probably read 3 chapters at a time, but we'll discuss that in a little bit. And meanwhile, we'll probably read The Gallant and host a discussion of that to satisfy our Wars of Light and Shadow cravings until we start Fugitive Prince. We'll see everyone on September 10th. Bye.
Take care.
All right. Remember, September, pre-orders for the final book.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's right.
indeed.
Yes.
Don't know exactly when in September yet. I'm still hoping to get an answer, but we just still know sometime in September.
Cool. Keep an eye out for that.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.